Hey everyone, this is Brett from Link Digital, and I'm going to show you how to install the new version of CKAN 2.10 on a brand new Ubuntu 22.04 machine, which I have created on my macOS box. I'm going to be following the instructions for installing from source. So we go to the maintainers guide, and we're actually on the 2.10. If you see at the top there in the URL, we're on the 2.10 instructions. So we go to installing CKAN, and we have three methods to install it. And we're going to pick the source install for today. Okay, now we'll see that in the documentation that we have Ubuntu 22 and 20 as supported virtual machines, and we also mentioned the actual default Python version on those distributions as well. So let's get started. The first thing we do, as we always do, is we need to install some system packages. Although Python 3.10 is automatically installed, we do need to install the dev pip and the virtual environment packages as well, because they are not there. And this takes a little while. It's a bit faster than I thought it was going to be. Great. Okay, so that's done. We go back to the instructions. We go down here, and we want to set up our virtual environment. Our Python virtual environment. So we create the directory. I must have accidentally clicked that. Okay, so we want to change the ownership of that new directory. We want to create the new Python virtual environment. We want to activate that and see if that actually works. Okay, so we are now in the new virtual environment, Python virtual environment. We can see this because the last directory in the environment is called default. We have this little default prompt here on the left hand side, so that's how we know that we're actually in the virtual environment. Okay, so the next step we need to do is the instruction says we need to upgrade pip. Let's do that. Okay, so it looks like we installed pip 23. We had 22 there before. Okay, so the next thing we do is we want to install the latest stable release of CKAN 2.10.0, and this is the instruction, the command we run. Okay, this takes a little while. Let's put me up there a bit so I can see a bit more. Okay. The instructions also mention installing the master branch here in a kind of development mode. If that's what you want to do, then that's the command that you would run for that. And master is generally a good option, but there may, especially the development version, as it says here, may contain the odd bug, so avoid for production. But 2.10 is the latest stable, so in a production environment you definitely want to install 2.10 at the moment. Let's go back to the screen, see what's happening. It's installing all the Python packages needed for CKAN. And it's done. Wasn't that long. It was pretty quick. Okay, let's. Instruction says to deactivate and reactivate our Python virtual environment, and so we'll do that. See, we don't have the default prompty thing on the left-hand side, so we run activate. I've never had a problem with this not working, but I guess it's something that we really do need to do. Okay, so the next thing is we have CKAN kind of installed, but we need a database, so we install Postgres. And this takes a little while too. what do we do next? Let's have a quick look. Okay, that's done. Now, excuse me, we want to check and see what default databases have been kind of installed, just to make sure that it looks okay. That looks fine. There's normally 3 that are part of the Postgres installation. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to create our user, and that's our CKAN underscore default user. And we need a password for that, so I'm going to put in CKAN 2.10. There's a password. Okay, so that's done. Back to instructions. And we want to create the database, and the database is called CKAN default. We want to install or create a database with the particular user, owner. And that's done. So if we run the psql.l command again, we see that we have our new database, which is the default CKAN database. Okay, so that's all done. Now, okay, so the database is installed, just a bare database with pretty much nothing in it. And so next we want to create our configuration, our CKAN configuration file. Everything kind of configuration wise goes under /etc/CKAN/default. So we want to create that directory first. We want to change the ownership of the directory above it, and everything down to the current user, which is Brett. And this command here will generate our CKAN.ini file in that directory that we created, etc CKAN default. Okay, so let's have a look at this new CKAN configuration file. And the first thing we do, actually it's the only thing we do now these days, is we want to change the password for the database user. And we see that it's automatically populated with PASS as the password, but we want to change that to CKAN 2.10. Save that. That's all we're going to do in this file for this video. This is just the bare bones to get CKAN up and running. So we go back to the instructions, and it does actually mention here to change that particular parameter value. And it also mentions about site ID and site URL. We won't worry about that yet. Okay, so the next thing we do is we want to set up Solr. Now Solr has changed, and we are now running Solr 8, and there are 2 different ways to install Solr and use Solr. The first being the Docker as a Docker container, which is a great option, but we're going to do it manually, which is the second method in the documentation. So we want to install the system package, which is the OpenJDK package. This takes a while too. Yeah. And we see that we have the instructions. The next instructions is we need to download Solr So if we go to the Solr website, we see that we have these two versions to download. Version 9, 9.11, actually 9.1.1, and 8, 8.11.2. We're going to download the binary release of Solr 8, 8.11.2, and I've already done that, and I have it already on this virtual machine, so I don't have to show you how to do that. Okay, so we go back to the instructions. We've installed that. Now I am in my home directory, and we see here that I have already downloaded the Solr software. So the next thing we do is we want to extract a script from that archive file. Great, here it is. We've extracted that. Now we want to run that script, and that will install Solr for us. Really quite painless. And everything looks like everything gets installed into /opt for Solr these days. Okay, instruction says to run a status command on that service. So we have a Solr service configured as part of the install, and we want to just check the status that it looks good, and it does. It looks fine. Okay, so we want to create a new Solr core, a CKAN core, and that command will do it. Okay, here we see we've created the new core CKAN. Now we want to grab the schema for Solr, and we want to rename it on the virtual machine. Okay, so see the command that we ran, we pick it up here and we rename it here. We rename it manage schema, and we see that that file exists. I don't have permissions to actually oh, not really sure what happened there. Anyway, the command looks like it worked. Oh, I'm not sure why I didn't do it right last time. Anyway, so there it is. There's the schema file that we're actually going to use. So let's go back to the instructions. And okay, so next thing we do is we want to restart the Solr service. Which will pick up the schema file. Okay, so that's done. What we might do now is I might just visit this URL just to make sure that we're getting something from Solr. And that looks good. So we just accessed the Solr URL. That's a local URL running within that that JDK. And we see this output and it looks fine. Okay, so what we do now, we don't worry about Redis. We want to initialize the CKAN database. With this command. Now, if the password was incorrect in the CKAN ini file, the config file, then this part would actually fail quite spectacularly. But so far it looks like it's working, and we get the initializing DB success message at the end, so that's fine. Good. So we're not going to worry about data store. Data store is something kind of extra that another video will be done to describe how to set all that up. But we're at step number 9 here, and it says we're done. So we can actually start CKAN. Oops. Let's do that. See if it runs. Looks good. It's running on port 5000, which is the default port. Now, what I might do is show what you on a browser. So I need to actually show the actual virtual machine that I have set up here, and just see if we get a CKAN screen. You see I've already accessed that URL on this. You see we got send log coming through here, and we have it. We have CKAN installed. Now you could go and create a new user and log in, but I'm pretty happy that we have CKAN up and running using the source install method. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.